Hi, I'm Kai Cheng Tom, and you're watching Ask Kai Quick Tips for the Apocalypse, a series of short videos in which I give you amazing advice that will change your life, or maybe it won't, but it'll probably still be fun to watch. So today's question is from a person who writes to us. Hi, I've recently realized that I'm asexual, but my partner isn't. I really want to stay together. What should I be thinking about? First off, I just want to say to the person who wrote this question, congratulations on doing this piece of self-discovery. I think it's really amazing when folks do self-reflection and really think about what they want and what they need and come up with something that maybe gives them more clarity about what they're looking for in life, in a partnership, in a relationship. Now, the sticky part, of course, is once you realize what you want and what you don't want, and if one is asexual, then what may be something that one doesn't want to have is a ton of sex. That might not line up with the people who are currently in your life, and in this case, particularly the romantic partner. So the question is, I really want to stay together. What should I be thinking about? And without knowing this particular couple very well, I think I would say it's important to take stock of where is the partnership more generally outside of sexual life. So sometimes folks in partnerships are already having a rocky time for reasons outside of sexuality and physical intimacy, and then a shift like discovering someone is asexual comes along, and that opens up a bigger conversation about, is the relationship in general one that should be continued right now? On the other hand, a lot of relationships are doing pretty okay or really, really well outside of the realm of physical intimacy and sexuality. And so this one possibly big change might not affect those other things quite so much. So I guess what I'm saying is, well, to take stock of how are you really feeling about your romantic partner? How are they really feeling about you? This may be a conversation to have in therapy. I would suggest doing that individually with a therapist or counselor first, and then coming together if that's something you want to do, so that you can get what you want to say and what you're feeling clear before you address each other. It's just important to do some thinking individually before you have that big conversation in general. As someone who has jumped into a lot of big conversations with my romantic partners without thinking it through first, I'm just going to say, try and think it through first. If the two of you still love each other and you both want to stay together, then I would say communication and working through it collaboratively is key and also very possible. And I know a lot of folks who are asexual in romantic partnerships with folks who are more sexual, and things tend to work out okay. How is that possible? Well, first, I would say it's important for both people in the partnership to do more self-reflection and get even more clarity about what they're wanting and willing to do in terms of sexuality. So your partner might have some really specific needs around what they want from their sexual life and their partnership with you. It would be important for them to get a sense of what are those needs? What do they need to do? Or maybe they actually don't have that many sexual needs, and it's kind of okay not to have that much sex, or maybe not even to not have sex at all. For the person who is newly discovering or uncovering their asexuality, important to get a sense of, well, what does asexuality mean to you? A lot of asexual folks still want to have some kind of physical intimacy with a partner, and some don't want any at all. But important for you to get a sense of, is there anything that you want from your sexual life with your partner? And even if there's nothing that you want, is there anything that you are willing to give that your partner might want that wouldn't be terrible for you and would still feel like building intimacy on an emotional level, even if it is not the most physically exciting or pleasurable? Now, this is like kind of like a tricky, edgy area because it brings up these big questions of like consent. One thing that I've heard that I don't love so much from third wave college feminism is this idea of consent, sexual consent needing to be enthusiastic at all times. So yes, we definitely need consent, But enthusiasm sort of implies this like, gosh, I love this sex I'm having at every single moment. It's so amazing. It's blowing my mind. And that idea about enthusiasm, that we have to be, having 100% pleasure at all times, or the sex is bad and evil and wrong, just doesn't actually line up with most people's sexual lives, particularly the sexual lives of people who have been in a partnership for any significant period of time, because anyone who's been in a partnership like that can tell you, it waxes and wanes. But still, sometimes you want to have sex that you're not so enthusiastic, like jumping for joy about, because you still want to build a bridge of physical intimacy that then becomes emotional intimacy with that other person. So I really love the work of a sex educator and body worker named Betty Martin. She's written a book and also made many online resources that you can access for free. It's amazing, called The Wheel of Consent. So you can look up the Wheel of Consent or the School of Consent or Betty Martin on Google, and you'll find a lot of great resources on this about how consent can look when you want to have intimacy with your partner as a gift you are giving to them, even if you are not so excited about it. I think that this is a really awesome way to conceive of sexuality and consent, because as desire crests and falls, we still may want to give access to our bodies, to our partners, as like a sacred gift, something that we are doing to create romance and intimacy, something we are still getting something out of, even if it isn't that sort of immediate erotic pleasure that we see in porn and like in movies and stuff like that. So that's something to consider. But there's a difference between being willing to have sex that you're not immediately excited about so that you can build emotional intimacy with your partner. That's something that you might still want and is something that can be done in a healthy way. I wouldn't say, though, that just having sex because if you don't, you're afraid that the partnership will end is a good reason to have it. There's a fine line there. But if sex is something that is really, for example, repulsive or painful or emotionally triggering, I really would not suggest doing sexual activity just for the sake of keeping your partner happy. In my experience, that never tends to work, and that does cross some fairly concerning consent lines, at least in my mind. So that's something then that you might want to have a bigger conversation about with supportive folks in your life, with your partner. If sex is just really like not pleasurable at all for you and it's uncomfortable or painful, I would say like not to do it. And then so in this case, you can have a conversation with your partner about if they have sexual needs, maybe they can get them met in another way. Do you need to consider polyamory or an open relationship of some kind? What are they getting from you that they still love and need and want that is not in the realm of sexuality? And maybe your partnership can continue to function in that way. And also, I just want to hold as a reality, to validate and affirm that sometimes when we discover that our needs are really different from those of our partners, the partnership sometimes comes to an end. And that is okay. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean any of these other things that can sometimes come to mind when a partnership ends because we're not able to meet our partner's erotic or romantic or other needs. It just means that your needs and their needs are different. That's it for today, kids. You've been watching Ask Kai, Quick Tips for the Apocalypse. I'm Kai Cheng Tom. Stay safe. Wash your hands. I think we're supposed to be still washing our hands. That's probably still a good idea, right? Like in the COVID, even if it's not like for COVID, you probably should still wash your hands anyway. Wash your hands and, have fun. Enjoy yourselves, but also stay safe.